Hello, I'm Alma Schneider. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the proud mother of 4 children, one of whom has Prader-Willi syndrome.
And I am Iris Miller. I'm a certified rehabilitation counselor and the proud mother of 2 children, one of whom has quadriplegic cerebral palsy and is nonverbal.
In this podcast, we discuss the uncensored truth about raising children with disabilities.
Prepare to laugh, cry, and hopefully learn something new.
This is 2 Moms, No Fluff.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us to another episode of 2 Moms, No Fluff, the podcast in which we discuss the uncensored truth about raising kids with disabilities. I'm Iris Miller, and I'm here with my lovely, amazing partner, Alma Schneider. Hello, Alma.
Hello, Iris. Very nice to see you and very excited about our topic today that we've been waiting for. I think that the audience is going to really appreciate who is here today. So I'm just going to introduce him, Steve Duetzmann. We are very happy to have you here from Engaged Family Gaming. So everyone might be wondering why we have someone talking about gaming on our podcast, and you will learn all about how gaming can help our children and families who have children with disabilities. So welcome, Steve.
Thanks. I'm super excited. It's funny, we met working on a different project and you heard that I did this and you're like, wait, we should just get you on the show. And I could not have hesitated any less. I was super excited. I love coming on podcasts. I have my own. It's always fun talking about games. And I particularly like talking to people about games who aren't in the games media, because I get different kinds of questions and I'm not talking about the same thing. As you know, and so it's always a nice change of pace. And this is a topic that is super important to me. And whether I don't know if the two of you know, it's actually super important to the games industry at large. Over the last handful of years, both Xbox and PlayStation, two of the biggest platform holders, have released adaptive controllers to help with to be more accessible within the last 2 or 3 years at relatively low price points, to try and make it so that because gaming is for everybody, and they are trying to do that. So I'm super excited to come here and talk to y'all. And I could ramble for a whole lot of time, but I know you guys have some questions, and I was warned 3 times before we started to not ramble because we want to keep things tight for your listeners. So
we didn't use the word ramble. We just said we like to keep it succinct.
I used the word ramble.
Okay.
So what do you got for me?
Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into this field and just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. EFG has been around for 10 years. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary last June. I have always loved games. I'm 43, an elder millennial, as they like to call us. And so I have had video games around my life and my person for as long as I can remember. I still vividly remember the day my parents brought home a Nintendo. And the reason, and I think it was kind of prophetic. I'll tell this story because it's actually kind of funny, but really sweet. I remember my mother brought my brother and I into our family living room. And my dad had gone out to go buy it. And so he was hiding it in the car and it was in the bag. And, he brought it in and we freaked out. It wasn't Christmas. It was in the middle of the summer, but I don't know, they had found a good deal or something. And my dad went upstairs. They set it up in their bedroom because they decided that if they put it in their bedroom, they could better control our access to it. And while that was true, it did come with some downsides, which involved us waiting for them to wake up every Saturday morning so we could play our games. Most parents don't do that anymore. So but I remember he set it up and he was playing Duck Hunt, which is the light gun game. And a very arcadey experience. And my mother had a lot of experience playing Pong and other arcade games, when she was, when her and my father were just together. And I asked him if I could play Super Mario Brothers, which is the other game that came with the thing. And my mom, I remember her looking at my dad with this very concerned face. And she looked at him and said, "Is it safe?" And I looked at her and I said, "Mom, of course it's safe. It's just a video game." And so I remember that conversation, and fast forward, however old I was 10 years ago, 33, I was talking to my wife and I knew that I wanted to write about games. And rather than be like Dude Bro 9000 writing about Call of Duty and Madden, which there really isn't a market for, my wife suggested that I created this. And because I firmly believe every good idea came from someone's mother, sister, girlfriend, aunt,
Oh, really?
and
Huh. Nice.
I firmly believe that. And so I think if she thought about the stuff that I've done to try and make this all work, maybe she might have given a different answer in the last 10 years. But it really is a mission that I have had, which is to help parents connect with their kids through games. And I think the important part is the connect through games, not necessarily with them, because there are absolutely parents that have zero interest in picking up a controller ever. They have no interest. Maybe they had a bad experience when they were a kid. It makes them nervous, whatever. There's all sorts of reasons. But that doesn't mean that you can't participate in the hobby. I cannot throw a football for the life of me, but I really do watch football, right? And so video games are a similar thing. It's a skill-based activity that can be intimidating, but everybody can kind of pay attention to it. And so I have slowly amassed a team of mostly my friends. Some of my very best friends have worked with me, and we have been making content on the site for a whole 10 years.
Wow.
So, Steve, I want to ask you a question. I know that there is an interesting dynamics between parents and children around the maybe length of time that is okay to spend with video games, and the type of video games that the children should be allowed to be exposed to, etc. I know a little bit about the perspective from families of children with disabilities, but maybe you can address this kind of question or dilemma from the wider audience perspective, and what is your sentiment about it?
Sure. I can talk about this all the time. In fact, the screen time topic is the one that I get the most. And it's one that my views on this have evolved as my kids have aged. Because when I started this, my oldest was 7, and now he's 18 years old and away at college. And I have a 15-year-old and I have an 11-year-old. So my kids have grown up with me, doing the site and kind of having strong opinions about it. I think the answer is that I have will be kind of congruent with a lot of the experts that talk about it with the community of children with disabilities, is that it depends. And there isn't a solid correct answer. The reality is every kid is different, right? And that's beyond, when we talk about children with disabilities, right? One kid that has a disability, exactly one. There's no standard. You have to take into account every individual kid, their need, their attitudes, their, what are they doing? And then when you're talking about video games, you have to think about what is the game about, and also what are they doing? And sometimes that activity is different even within the game, right? Because a lot of games will have, kind of different game modes and different things. My headphone just, bear with me just a moment.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you guys talk so I can make sure I can hear you?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
We're still here.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
No worries.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So sorry about that.
That's
no
okay.
worries.
Okay. So what I was getting at, and Iris, I'm sorry, you'll have to fix this in post. My headphones died. There are so many games that have different game modes and stuff that you could be playing a game. And, if you're like, hey, Timmy, what are you playing? And he says, well, I'm playing Fortnite. Well, that doesn't mean anything anymore, because you could be in Fortnite and you could be playing the Battle Royale game, which is what gets most of the news. But within that same launcher, that is the same game, they have Rocket League, which is race car soccer. And they have a kart racer like Mario Kart, and the company Harmonix, which made Guitar Hero that many of us will remember from, the plastic guitar age.
Yeah.
They are owned by Epic Games, and in Fortnite is Fortnite. It's a Fortnite music festival. In fact, they partnered with Lego, and within Fortnite, there is a Lego survival game, which is like Minecraft with Legos. And when you buy a skin in Fortnite, you actually get the skin in all of those games, or in as many of them as that skin is compatible. So, like,
what is a skin?
A skin. Oh, well, you know what?
Here.
A skin. So a skin is it's a cosmetic item where you buy it and it makes your character look different. In some cases, they're free. Like in Minecraft, you can make them. And what it does is it just changes the way your character looks, but not how it functions. It's not like buying a different gun in a shooting game. It is like when there are games that do that, it changes the aesthetic. So in Fortnite, famously, they sell skins and they rotate on a daily basis, or every couple of days, and they'll partner with Marvel, and you can dress up like Spider-Man. And right now you could buy a skin and look like Maleficent, and which is, I never thought I would have seen that, but the NFL partnered with them, and you can wear all the NFL uniforms, etc. So it's wild. Shaq is in the store right now, like Shaquille O'Neal. Or at least he was until a couple of days ago. So it really depends. I think every parent needs to take a look at what their kid is doing. And I think it's very context sensitive, because I think playing by oneself and if they are stressed out about it and they're not happy while they are playing, like maybe they're tilted and a little agitated because maybe it's too hard, then maybe a limit might be a good idea to steer them off. But if they're online playing with friends and connecting with their peers, then I offer and encourage a little bit more leeway, because video games, especially since the pandemic, are the new digital playground. That's where kids they're not going to the park to play basketball with their friends. They're going and playing NBA 2K25 with their friends. And I think that that's different than playing a single player shooter holed up in your attic, just cussing into the universe.
Okay, so it's really, what you're saying is really consistent with what everybody says in general, disability or not. Know what your kid is playing, talk to them about it, sit with them. So when you said somebody might not have any interest or in playing a video game at all, are you saying that engaging with them is more just sitting with them as they're playing and having conversations with them as they're playing? What do you mean by engaging with them?
I mean, that's going to depend on you and your relationship with them. I think at the very least, you should know the name of the game that they are playing, so you can Google it yourself. YouTube is an amazing resource for this. If your kid is playing a game and you have never heard of it, go to YouTube, type it in, and I guarantee you there's like probably a literal year of footage of that game up, and just watch it on your phone while you're, making dinner or something. And 5 minutes of most of the gameplay with these games will give you a really good idea of what kind of game it is and what they're doing and whether you're comfortable with it. Obviously, it's not going to catch everything, but sometimes you just need to get an idea. Oh, this is a race car game. They're, and what it'll do is it'll open the door. Then you can talk to them. Right. And then, that's the best way to engage with them, is know what they're playing, pay attention. If they are interested in letting you watch, some kids are self-conscious about their gameplay. Then yeah, absolutely. Watch, ask questions. If your kid was reading a book and they were engrossed in this book series and you just couldn't get them to put this book down, a lot of parents would ask, hey, what's this book about? Where'd you get it? Who told you about it? Those are the same. Video games are the same kind of media. How'd you find Fortnite? How'd you find this random game? And they'll tell you, a YouTuber or my friend, or it was on sale.
And maybe asking, in this particular case, it comes to mind, what do you like about this game?
Oh, yeah. Why are you playing it? Because it'll be interesting. Sometimes they'll be playing a game and they won't know. I'll be talking to my 15-year-old. He just likes to play stuff. Admittedly, my house, video games, they do come. My kids do live video game privileged lives. I have companies sending me games, and that has been happening forever.
Yeah.
And I have to remind them every once in a while that they get games without waiting for birthdays and Christmas a lot more than just about every other kid in America. So
Yeah.
show dad some respect for his dumb video game blog, okay? But the you know the we would he likes to play random stuff sometimes, and I'll just be like, where did you hear about this? Because it'll be something I'll have never heard, and I'm pretty in touch.
Yeah.
And it's just like indie music, right? Like sometimes somebody's like, yeah, I just saw this record, or I just it popped up on my Spotify, and now I just love this artist. It gets like 100 plays a day. Video games are like that too. Like 3,000 video games a month are published on Steam, which is the big PC gaming platform. So,
that's a lot of work for the parents and the guardians to have to go through all those games if their kids are.
Well, I mean, the good news is most kids can't possibly consume that much content, right? If for nothing else, because even if they wanted to, there's just not enough time. I think the easiest way to safeguard and to prevent all these problems is it's in the name of my website. Engage with your family through gaming. And it doesn't mean playing it necessarily, but talk to them about it, take an interest in it. Because if you take an interest in it, then they will be more likely to talk to you about it and share both good experiences, which we want, right? But we want to know the bad experiences too, so that we can kind of help them work through it. If they have a disagreement with a friend because they've made a bad play in Fortnite, it's not very different emotionally than if they missed a pass in basketball, or if they got into a disagreement over something that to us is trivial in school, but to them, it's their whole world.
Right.
And, video games are an integral part of many of our kids' lives. And so just kind of accepting that and kind of leaning into it is going to solve a lot of those problems.
So, Steve, I want to ask you something that people tend to not discuss that much. But can you please tell us about the advantages of video games and how it can support our children's development? Because I know there are many ways that it does. So please give us the phone, please.
So, Iris, that's a really good question. And it's worth mentioning that the idea of, kind of talking about the benefits of games, it's not talked about a lot right now, and it hasn't been before, but that body of work is growing. Video game academia, people that actually study games and its impact on kids without necessarily assuming that it is negative, because we are in the middle of a moral panic for video games. And I've been fighting it for 10 years. We will start to see more information come out and it will be more readily available. For me, when people ask me this question, which I'm sure you can imagine, I actually get asked it a lot. For me, I think the biggest thing is that it teaches kids how to learn from failure. And I think that, we talk a lot about, right, like parents talk a lot about, resiliency and kids getting really frustrated by failure academically, athletically, etc. Video games is one space where when you're playing Super Mario Brothers and you fall down a pit, you die. That's not cool, but the answer is not turn the game off. Right. There's no game over screen right now. What it does is you just start back at the beginning of the level or the checkpoint and you start again. And so it encourages you to experiment and try new things, push different buttons, hold the controller in a different way, etc. And it really does encourage you to kind of lean into failure. The popularity of some of the incredibly difficult games that is kind of rising in popularity and have been over the last decade or so, are a testament to that. Games where you'll fight a boss 100 times before you kill it.
Wow.
And you just have to figure out everything, and you have to be patient, and you have to learn its patterns and execute perfectly. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Outside of the fact that there are absolutely kids that learn new words and learn different turns of phrase or different uses for language just by being forced to read in games. And so I think there is certainly opportunities for language development, things like that. Tons of stories. Admittedly, what do they say? Anecdote is not the plural form of evidence, right? But like, I've talked to plenty of kids who have said that they were helped along to learn reading or encouraged to read because they couldn't play Pokemon until they read. They had to learn to read. It didn't teach them, but it was the carrot on the stick. All their friends were playing Pokemon, but they couldn't do it until they could read.
Everybody needs an incentive.
Exactly. And you know what? If that's the incentive, let's bring those little monsters right in. Pikachu's cute enough. And so those are two just off the top of my head. It used to be we would talk about hand-eye coordination and things like that. And while that is true, there are studies that show that surgeons who play video games are more successful at operating some of their equipment because of their ability to control to kind of their brain to process abstract controlling a thing. But it's we used to rely on that, and while that's true, we don't have to worry about that anymore. There's a lot of benefits that can come just from playing these different kinds of games and learning different strategies, etc.
And socialization at a minimum. I mean, if you're too shy or struggle with in-person socialization, this is a great way to socialize.
That is a whole nother category of benefit. And the reality is, when I talked about how video games are the modern playground, that is absolutely the case. Ever since the pandemic and even beforehand, right? We see think pieces all over the place that parents really just aren't letting their kids roam in the streets anymore. And we could probably have a whole series of podcasts about why that is the case and whether that is appropriate or not. But the reality is that's what it is. But because of games like Minecraft, Fortnite, and frankly, even Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto, which both have robust online multiplayer games, I'm not saying they're appropriate for everybody, but the reality is they are social circles. There are adult men who the way they hang out with their friends is rather than going to a bar, they get on their Xbox every night and they play Call of Duty with their guys. And that's where they build camaraderie. That's where they share stories. That's where they have an opportunity to connect on a deeper level where before they would do it at a bar or in somebody's garage, that kind of thing. Now they do it online. And kids are the same way. My son connects with his Boy Scout troop. He comes back from his Boy Scout troop, meetings on Wednesdays, and he's like, "Dad, I got to hop on Fort with my guys." That's Fortnite. And I'm like, "Well, you got to do the dishes first," and he does it, and he goes upstairs, and you hear him yakking with his guys about sometimes some of the same stuff they were just talking about an hour before. They just happen to be doing goofy nonsense in a video game. And
so it's sort of like a crutch, like a social crutch. So they're able to talk because they're in this structured environment of a game.
I don't necessarily even I don't even necessarily think we need to use that language for it. I mean, it provides them access to more people. It does provide them access to strangers, and it does provide strangers access to them. So there are all of the stranger danger stuff that we would teach our kids if we were letting them walk around the mall alone still is valid. But it does give them access to hanging out with friends at times and frequencies that were never possible before.
Right.
And that's a pretty big deal, I think.
Yeah. And I shouldn't have used the word crutch, more like a touchstone. What is it? Something that can make you feel comfortable, like going to a party where there are people that sort of that allow you to feel more comfortable at the party to meet other people. Like having
absolutely.
A place.
Absolutely.
I have a question because I don't know much about I know the name Grand Theft Auto and I know Fortnite, and that those are like,
I mean, those are the two biggest games in the world.
Okay, well, they have negative, connotations for a lot of people because they're violent. That's the only thing I know about them, that there's a stigma against them. Do you have any games that you consider more wholesome? Like, I know that Minecraft is a way to kind of, a lot of people see it as, they go on to be architects from it or engineers. What are some games that you consider wholesome that do not deal with shooting people or cutting someone's head off, whatever?
Sure. Yeah. One thing I do want to say is Fortnite gets a lot of flack, and I think part of it is because it is popular and because it does have guns. And so a lot of folks kind of draw a hard line without watching it.
Right.
I would encourage, and I'm going to be very, I live in Connecticut, so
Mhm.
gun violence among, with youth, et cetera. I am very supportive of, people having restrictions and having strong opinions on it. However, I am a big supporter of having informed, strong opinions. And there are more than a few folks that when they watch a game of Fortnite being played, become less concerned. The reality with Fortnite is it is so heavily abstracted behind bright, shiny lights and numbers popping up all over the place. And if you die, you fall over and a little spaceship comes up and beams you up.
Okay.
So it's not the same as, like other more violent games. Now, if for parents that have hard line, no, we may not use or talk, then obviously it is a hard line. But if it's just, well, it's got guns in it, and I don't want you shooting people.
Right.
I mean, if you let them play with squirt guns and Nerf guns, then I think Fortnite is probably fine. So I think Fortnite is worth at least a look for folks that have never seen it. Now, for games that are more wholesome, yeah, there's tons. In fact, it's funny that you use the word wholesome, because wholesome is actually a whole genre of games that have come up within the last 3 or 4 years. So if you looked up wholesome games, it's kind of a whole category of games where the conflict is primarily derived through non-combat. So they would be things like farming games and building games and puzzle games, or and it gets crazy, but the amount of different things you can do. There's a video game where you are a mail carrier and you're driving around a town, learning about your history at that town, delivering mail. So it's a very narrative-driven story game. It's painted animated, it's beautiful. And so as far as my absolute recommendations, I think that if you are looking to play, if you're looking for your kids to play games and you are very concerned about violence, I think the best thing to do, if you can, is to look at the Nintendo platform. So the Nintendo Switch, primarily because Nintendo doesn't really peddle in violent games for the most part. Obviously, they have some exceptions, but the ESRB rating system kind of covers that. But Super Mario is kind of universally safe. If Mario is on it, then you're probably in good shape. And in fact, Nintendo doesn't even put their first-party characters in Fortnite because they don't want images of their characters carrying guns. They're very protective of that. So I think that is a safe route to go without even naming names.
And do any of them rival the excitement that people feel from these more, these games with combat?
I'm thinking about our Engaged Family Gaming. The way we function is every year at the end of the year, we award a game of the year for video games. We do it by ESRB rating.
What is an ESRB?
We do that I'm sorry?
ESRB, what is that?
ESRB is the Entertainment Software Ratings Board. So if you remember looking at video games, and you see the little box in the corner with the name with a letter in it. So it'll be that is a part of there's a lobbying body, because everything has a lobbying body, but they have an organization within that was designed specifically to review games and assign a rating to them, and that rating system is designed to help parents at a glance figure out what is in a game. So they'll be rated E for everyone, E10 plus, which would be everyone, rated 10, age 10 or up. There are T rated games, which are rated T for teen, and then rated M for mature, which is considered 17 and plus up. And then they do have an adults only rating, but it's worth mentioning that rating is very often not given to final products. Sometimes it's given early and then they have an opportunity to change their game. And no game can be on a digital storefront, like you can't buy it on PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo if it doesn't have a rating. And none of them will sell adults only games. So those games exist, but you would have to buy them from direct. You're not just going to trip over those. So as far as do they rival, my personal game of the year has not been rated M for years. And I don't mean that just from, the perspective of Engaged Family Gaming and my target audience. I mean, literally my favorite game of the year has not been rated M for several years. And, as far as, excitement and, challenge, I would say that the majority of games that are published are not rated M. And, there are absolutely games that can rival some of those things. With that said, they're juggernauts. They're hard to avoid. So it's one of those things where, if your entire social circle is playing Fortnite, it's hard to avoid it. I remember we didn't want to play Fortnite in the beginning. My kids had a shooter. We were playing a different one, and they went to Boy Scout camp, and we visited them in the middle of the week. And my kids were like, "Dad, you got to let us play. I mean, if you're going to let us play, let's just stop playing the other one, and then we'll play this one, because nobody wants to talk about that. All they want to do is talk about Fortnite." And my wife and I, we went home and we watched some videos, and we were like, you know what, fine. We didn't stop them from playing the other one, but they did naturally, because there's only so much time.
Right, because it's your social circle. I mean,
well, that's where all their friends were. And so I wanted them to play with their friends because it's a social environment. So to give some specific examples, and I'll give you guys links. You can put them in the show notes. We actually have we actually call it our EFG Essentials, which is a list of games that we would recommend at any time to just about anybody. So if you bought a Switch, I feel comfortable handing this list to anybody, and these are good games.
Can you tell everybody what a Switch is?
A Nintendo Switch is the new Nintendo. It is a handheld game. It is do I have one here? I do. It's still in the box, but it looks like one of these things, and it is a handheld with a big screen in the middle. This is a Switch Lite, which is only handheld. These are less expensive, and they're really cool for younger kids. If you ever thought about, if you're a millennial like me and you ever dreamt of giving your kid a Game Boy, this is the new Game Boy.
The new Game
That's what
Boy.
this is. And this is a special edition that I ended up buying for my wife. It's gold and has extra stuff on it.
Lucky lady.
You know what? I like to think that she was lucky without the Nintendo, but she knows what she bought when she married me. I was not. This was not hidden. And she is one of my people. So this was welcomed. So anyway, and this is the Switch Lite. The regular Switch, what's really interesting about it and why they call it a Switch is because you can switch it between handheld and docked mode, where you can actually play it on your television. And it's as simple as lifting the device out of the dock, and it goes from your TV onto the thing. It's actually really, the first time I ever did it, I didn't believe it was going to work. And it is seamless and very cool, because what it means is your kid can be playing on the living room television and playing the game, and when it's time to put on your stuff, or when it's time to just turn the TV off because you want the room to be a little quieter, they can take it out and sit on the couch and play the same game, same experience in their hands. I think it's very cool. They can take it in the car, etc. If I were to make some suggestions just in general, I think Minecraft is a must play. If your kids are just getting in, they know about it. And I think Minecraft is one of those games that everybody really needs to have some experience with. It is one of the biggest games on earth. If we were to do like a big three, to use the sports analogy, it'd be Minecraft, Fortnite, and Grand Theft Auto. Minecraft is a fascinating experience. And it's something that I think parents should take a look at too, just because there's so much that you can do in it. But it is very cool.
It seemed very educational.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot, and the reason for that is all the blocks are the same size, which means by default you're learning about math and spatial relations and stuff like that. But the physics is pretty close to real world physics, with some obvious exceptions. And so there's actually a whole Minecraft education edition where you can go in and tour famous locations and do science experiments and stuff like that. It's very interesting, and it's constantly growing. So
I need to do an important plugin right now because I don't know, Steve, if you're familiar with Special Effects, the company in the United Kingdom that helps people with disabilities access video games. And
yep.
they don't only adapt, I guess, the hardware so people with disabilities can access it, but they also developed an eye gaze controlled Minecraft version. So people with complex disabilities, like my daughter, can play Minecraft with eye gaze control.
Wow.
Yep, absolutely. I'm very familiar with Special Effect. I have, facilitated people donating to them in the past, and they're gaming charities for them. They work with Able Gamers is the US side, led by a guy named Steve Spahn, and that charity has over the last handful of years gained more prominence, and very cool. So yeah, absolutely plug it. You should put that link in the show notes too, because I think people would be interested to see it. They do a lot of work, and they're those two organizations working with these platforms, specifically Xbox and PlayStation, were the kind of what caused and really helped form these accessibility controllers. The Xbox accessibility controller is it was designed specifically to help fight some of the significant costs. And Iris, I mean, by with gaze controlling and things like that, I'm sure you have seen some of the cost of some of these peripherals. They get very costly. The adaptive controller from Xbox, which is useful for a lot of folks, what is really just kind of like a hub for all these other parts, and it comes in at around $100 US, which is expensive. I certainly accept that, but the fact that it exists will work with the Xbox and has just all sorts of plugs and adapters. So just about anything else you could imagine off the market, joysticks, buttons, breathing devices, they all plug into it. And so you can create a fully customizable controller set. I've considered buying one for myself, because I have some motor control issues when I'm stressed out, which happens when I play video games sometimes. So having a big old button I could just slap would be great.
I want to expand on that a bit, Steve, just because, again, my daughter was a beta tester for the Xbox controller. I want to mention to people that what they see in that package, the large round Xbox switches, this is not the only method of access. The controller can be connected to other switches. So let's say if your child can only use their foot or their head to kind of use switches, that controller connects to their Jelly Bean switch or whatever joystick or method of control they have, even a sip and puff, and then they can control the game via that new controller, but with their own method of access. So it's not that you buy that joystick. I can't even call it a joystick because it's just a flat control panel, but that control panel connects to many other methods of access.
It's like a hub is really what it is. It has buttons on there, and I think they probably asked somebody to tell them what they should put on there by default, and they did it. And obviously they needed something big, and it's kind of it's like cereal box shaped thing, and along the back of it is just about every plug and adapter you could imagine. And it's exactly what Ira said. It's designed to hook up to whatever setup you have and make it work with both, fortunately, both Xbox and also PC, which is really great because that adds a lot of flexibility to it. So I'm so excited that product was there, and I'm really happy that your daughter was able to take advantage of it, because Minecraft is super cool, and to have her be able to experience that, man, she must have been so stoked first time she was looking around and started looking around in the game. That must have been a really awesome feeling.
I have a question. Sorry, I have a question about, I know that on your website, and I hope everybody will check out your website and you can talk a little bit about what's on there, but it's not just video games that you talk about engaging with, it's board games as well.
Yep.
Correct?
That's true.
And what can you say about that that's different from the video games?
Absolutely. You know what? It's a funny story. I'll make it fast because I know we're running long and I don't want to take too much time. I never was planning on covering board games, but when I got started, I asked, you need writers, and I asked people around me, and a bunch of people were like, yeah, I'll write, but I only want to write about board games. And I was like, sure. And then I leaned into it, and now I go to New York Toy Fair every year. I go to, we just got approved for our media badges at PAX Unplugged, which is a big board game convention in Philadelphia. So it's turned into a whole pillar of our content. I think board games are amazing. I think a lot of folks, when they hear board games, just like when they hear video games, they assume Grand Theft Auto,
right,
and violent, horrific stuff. When that is not necessarily the case. There's plenty of other really, interesting and engaging experience. A lot of folks, they hear board games and they think Monopoly and Sorry and Uno. And while those games do exist, of course, the board game market, the hobbyist board game industry has had double-digit growth for the last decade. I've blurred my screen because I'm coming back from an event. And my wife would never let me put this on camera. But behind me is a whole shelf of board games, and the themes include wizards making potions, or literally manning a fire tower in the Pacific Northwest, or building trains in the early 1900s, to gods in Santorini, Greece, slowly trying to mold an island in their image, and all sorts of other really wild stuff. There's a board game about collecting bat poop.
Really?
It's actually really cool. It's a science-based game. It's about helping understand the bat's role in agriculture in a country in South America that is not at the top of my head, but it's very cool. And so so we talk about board games. It's actually my best friend Linda, who is our executive editor of board games, and that title is purely superfluous for those paying attention, because when you run your own company, you can have whatever title you want. She's in charge of managing our board game essentials list. And she is and so she, is keeping tabs on all of, what's happening, and, what's still in print. That is one challenge with board games. But Target is the best advice I can give to folks if they are interested in learning more about hobby games is go to Target and go to the toy section and look in the back, because Target is crazy. They are trying to become, they're trying to become to have like a board game boutique within their toy section. Whereas a lot of folks think they have to go to a comic book shop or a dedicated board game store to get stuff. That is not the case. You go to Target, you get some really good deals on some really inexpensive games. If I were to make a recommendation, I think a lot of folks, if you're just looking for a quick card game to play, you can go on Amazon right now and get a card game called Sushi Go, which is a card drafting game where you are building a plate of sushi. Just don't be upset that the sushi looks really cute and has cute little faces and stuff. You're not actually eating them, but you're collecting points by collecting matching sets of different kinds of sushis. And the idea is you're passing the cards around the table, and that's the equivalent of, the sushi going down the conveyor belt and you picking what you want. And it's like $10. It's $10. There's YouTube videos to learn how to play it. You can figure out how to play it in 5 minutes.
I've actually heard of this game. I think we have it.
Listen, go play it. Go play it when you can. It's great. And if you go and at Target specifically, another game that I think a lot of folks should give a shot is Pandemic. And I know after 2020, everybody's like, who wants that? Trust me, Pandemic is really cool because I think it's actually optimistic, because the idea of Pandemic is that if everybody works together and is thoughtful, you win.
Okay.
And man, if that happened, we would have won. So I think it's very hopeful. And it is kind of neat. The idea is there's an outbreak of a bunch of viruses on Earth, and everybody's at different kinds of things. You're a scientist, you're a civil engineer, you're literally flying around the world collecting, evidence and information to try and come up with cures. And it really encourages people to think and communicate and come up with strategies, and, crunch the numbers and count the cards. And the graphic design on it is so cool. And again, this is another one that you can probably get for $20. without a real problem. And I know it sounds, trust me, I played it. I was in my local newspaper playing it during the pandemic. They actually came and took pictures of me and my family. And that was the game I picked. And I was being kind of cheeky. And they were like, no, you got to tell us why. You can't just say you were being. And I was like, no, well, because I think it's optimistic. And I think it is. We love board games here.
Good to know. And so what can we find on your website? We can find blogs.
Yeah. So we are if you go to engagefamilygaming.com, you're going to find reviews. We do have a digital magazine that we put out quarterly. In fact, it's funny that we're talking about this today. I'm prepping for what we call EFG Con, which is where a bunch of my staff gathers quarterly to make a bunch of content. And so that's where we make our magazine. We're working on our holiday gift guide this coming weekend. So by the time this gets published, my guess is that our gift guide will be up and visible for viewing. And that's where we talk about some of the new stuff that's out this year, but also some of the stuff that's been around that is still worth talking. But also we have blogs that cover a variety of topics about how to do a family game night or how to teach your kids how to play Dungeons and Dragons. And every quarter when we get together, we end up adding a little bit more. We have recently started, we have a new person that's doing crafts. So we have gaming related crafts that are going to be coming up. And so those should be hitting the top of the blog roll soon. And lastly, my wife is a librarian who has a specific interest in digital literacy and digital citizenship. And I honestly think those are important topics for video games, or at the least are relevant. So we're probably going to be talking a lot about that in the coming months as well.
Great. And the website is engagefamilygaming.com.
Right? You got it. I'll make sure you guys have the link for your show notes. We're on all sorts of platforms. We are on Facebook. We do stream our podcast when we record it every other week on Twitch for those people who happen to know what that is. And yeah,
this is great. I've learned quite a bit.
Yes, Steve, I appreciate the exposure kind of from a reasonable adult. It's just a topic that many families are struggling with, finding the right balance or even exposing their kids to video games in the first place. I really appreciate you sharing the information and being available to our families online through the website and the blog, because there's a lot to learn here. Steve, thank you very, very much for what you do and for joining us today. And
thanks for having me.
Sorry?
Thank you so much.
And I said, thanks for having, I interrupted you to say, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So I was rude there. I'm sorry.
No, we are very happy that you joined us. And if people have questions regarding gaming or any other questions relating to your children with disabilities, please don't hesitate to contact us at info@2momsnofluff, and we can forward all your questions directly to Steve if you do want his advice. Thank you and have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Take care, Steve. Take care, everyone.
For more information, please go to www.twomomsnofluff.com. Thank you.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give it a 5-star rating so more people can hear it. Thank you.